Thank you, Madam President and Commissioners, for hearing my comment. My name is Jeff Kline. I'm a 15-year resident of Treasure Island at the Villages. And I'm going to have to give you a little bit of history. It's all very well that TIDA is now planning for tenant relocation, but it remains very problematic that TIDA and the City Attorney's Office stand behind TIDA's decision made before the Villages market rate units were even leased, before they were leased, that tenants of the Villages are not displaced persons under federal and state relocation law. Consequent to TIDA's decision, a waiver and release of rights to relocation assistance and housing benefits was drafted and attached to the original residential lease. That waiver and release states it must be agreed to and signed by qualified prospective tenants before signing any lease or rental agreement for premises in the Villages, and requires that these prospective tenants attest that they were fully informed of their rights and the relocation assistance and housing benefits that may be available to them under federal and state relocation law. In fact, during the past 16 years, not one tenant of the Villages has been properly informed of their rights to relocation assistance and housing benefits before they signed the lease. And, in fact, the waiver and release was never presented to residents before they signed the lease. And in fact, right now, it's, as of 2007, and my 2009 lease, it's on page 25 of the 35-page lease. So a document that's supposed to be signed, presented, and attested to before you sign the lease is presented in the middle of the lease, hidden away in the middle of the lease. So then City Attorney, this is 1999, Michael Cohen was advising TIDA at the time the decision was made by the village that the Villages were not, Villages tenants were not displaced persons under federal and state relocation law. Apparently, Mr. Cohen did not do due diligence as an attorney, because if he'd done a cursory search of Lexis legal database, it would have found that the controlling case law is contrary to that decision, and from the California Court of Appeals in this particular issue. In Garcia versus Anthony, 1989, the court held that all lawful residents who are displaced by a government project are entitled to last resort housing under California Government Code section 7264.5, regardless of whether they are post-acquisition tenants or not. Look it up. I don't have time to discuss all the injuries and harm that's been done to tenants by this unlawful decision by TIDA, but in just the last month, as it's tax time, I've discovered that these payments that have been made in the past have been made as taxable income. And this is also contrary to the relocation law. All those relocation payments are supposed to be not considered as income under federal and state law. And this is not a trivial matter. I'm looking at the TIDA budget for fiscal year 2015, lists $385,000 for interim move payments paid in conjunction with relocation of YBI residents prior to construction. And other payments were made to the TI-24, the 24 households who were removed, who were displaced by Navy remediation. Okay? All those payments, right? $385,000.
Thank you, Mr. Kline. Can you summarize your statement?
Continue.
Okay, I would like to continue. I'm on the last paragraph. May I continue?
Yes.
So we're talking about a potential wrongful tax liability, exposing innocent residents to more than $100,000 of wrongful tax liability so far. There's another $200,000 planned in next year's budget. And you've also discriminated against these so-called post-DDA, post-disposition development and disposition agreement tenants, because that is not a consideration when you're talking about last resort housing. And last resort housing, everyone who is displaced, if there's no comparable housing available, is entitled to last resort housing. And I'll give you an example of it. An example of it is that the Central Subway Project did a study of available housing impacts and last resort housing, and you can read what the city is actually supposed to do because they actually wrote it down, and I don't know why TIDA is not following the law. Thank you.
Thank you.